So, Frankie, we're talking about three things that modeling and hosting events have in common. But before we get to the link between these seemingly very unrelated topics, can you just tell us a bit about our new Yellow Door offering around events and how it came about?
Of course. So I've always had a passion for events. I've been in the sort of event and advertising industry for the past 15 years. And after my first few months at Yellow Door, we had numerous strategy sessions with the team or the core management team on what are we going to do going forward. So we had numerous ideas. We had ideas, we scratched it, we threw it out the window, we came back, revisited some ideas, and we had actually made a joint decision to pursue eventing as a service, especially after finding out that Dom also has a passion for it, and that Yellow Door, in fact, has hosted very successful events on their own as well. So the message was clear, I think direction was clear, and we've just decided, let's go for it. With everything that's happening out in the world, we have to be adaptable. We have to be able to change. We have to be willing to step out of our comfort zone. And I think this is a perfect place to explore.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the fact that we also aligned around it and clear on how it taps into our strengths is exciting. Um,
Definitely.
but before we talk about events anymore, tell us a bit about your modeling and acting career and what impact this has had on how you run events. When you mentioned it the other day, it really got my attention. So I'm keen to hear more.
Cool. So I started, which I consider at the young age of 12. I know there's baby models and actors out there. So I've been doing it for the past 22 years, and having to be on set from a very young age has taught me how to be independent, how to communicate with individuals of all ages, because it ranges from, I mean, yeah, all ages. Let's not call out any age of any director or producer. And that made me realize that you have to be adaptable. I know that I mentioned this in my previous answer to you, but often you'll book a job, you'll get so close to the wrap time at the end of the day, and then the production manager will come over and say, I'm sorry, would you mind if we just like stay another hour or two? And your immediate answer is no, I want to go home, I don't want to do this. But then in the back of your head, you go, you know what? I'm here, I'm dedicated. Potentially this could be more money. You check with your agent, is it fine? And you stay on. It's not necessarily because your acting or modeling skills are below par. It's more that the producer or the director thought, hold up, there's a shot that we missed, or I want to try something else. So when it comes to acting or modeling, you have to make a choice. Are you going to do drama, comedy, shorts, films, commercials, infomercials? In terms of shooting actual shots, do you want to do sports shoots? Are you a fashion model? Do you want to do ramp modeling? This is if you do have the height for it. And do you want to do lifestyle or even nude shoots? So the same applies to events. You cannot be a jack of all trades, as you will end up being a master of none. And I know that's an old saying, and a lot of people think, no, I can do everything. You cannot. I've done a multitude of events over the past 15 years, and I've had to find my niche. I started off with like 2,000 to 20,000 packs events, live bands, loads of alcohol, late nights, arriving home, not seeing my partner for over 4 days. Some nights we didn't even sleep. Yes, setting up and having such a great party. But I actually then I made the decision to use my skills that I've learned through acting and modeling and apply it to how I run my events, to be friendly, adaptable, never assume anything, never think that, cool, we're going to finish at 8 this afternoon or this evening, and then you don't. Ensure that you communicate with your client on every step of the journey without proper direction. So how a director will direct you on set or while you're doing a shoot, the same applies to your events. You have to communicate with your client, advise them what's going on, speak to your suppliers. Otherwise, your event will not be a success. You will run into issues, your dedicated budget will be destroyed, and you'll get a lot of people angry, not to mention the funder of the event. So if you can keep that in mind, your event should be a success.
Amazing, sure. And I love the parallels there. I think they're so relevant. And we often, yeah, maybe don't look for them. But let's get practical. Can you tell us about an example of an event you've hosted in the last couple of years where having this mindset and using those parallels really set it up for success?
Of course, we the most difficult event I would say was where I was the only event manager or organizer. It was for a private gig, actually, not even through a company. I organized a wedding on a private farm that was 3.5 hours out of Cape Town. It was the middle of the forest on their farm. So your access was limited unless you had a proper 4x4, something I unfortunately don't own yet. So I had to ask all the suppliers, we had to be adaptable. I had to ask all the suppliers to park in one parking area. We had to bring the tractors and trailers out from the farm itself. The mother of the bride even transported the flowers and candles on the back of her four-wheeler. And we had to call in favors from a helicopter friend of mine actually to fly a few things in for us, just because running back and forth from town just didn't make sense, because we only had one day to set up. And it's not because they had another event happening, it's because they had family members arriving from all over the world, and weather wasn't looking too great either. So while that happened, we also had to then think about what happens to the guests. Not all of them have 4x4s. We don't know whether they'll be able to see where they go at night. So with using the trailer and the tractor, we then took the church benches that we had hired for the actual ceremony, put on the back of the trailers, and we transported everyone on the back into the actual event. And the same when the event finished that evening, we had to go back. It was a rather treacherous journey. It actually made everything a lot more lighthearted, but it is in that moment where I had to go, I can either panic and just have a meltdown, or you can find ways of making it work for you. And as long as you communicate with your customer, with your client, with your guests as to what's going on, at the end of the day, we're all human. There are certain elements within eventing or life that you just don't have control over. And if you want to make a success out of it, just be sure to go with it. Don't fight it, because that's the biggest issue you could have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the like imagine there was a lot of layers of communication that needed to happen there. But also what stood out from that story was the kind of connections and tapping into your network, you know, casually saying, got a friend who's got a helicopter. That's just part of how you do things. And I think that's such an important part of events, of saying, okay, what is actually going to be the right answer here? What's the right solution? Who can we bring in? And how do we, I think it's a big part of our approach at Yellow Door, is like assembling that dream team,
If
and going like, how do we get the right people to make it happen?
being willing to
And
fight that
yeah, did the bride and groom have the best day in the forest? Most
we had,
importantly.
it was the best day. Well, best afternoon and evening. I mean, I didn't go into detail, but we had fairy lights just set up over the big harvest table. A lot went into it because there was a lot of mosquito central as well. So we had to set up mosquito fighting stations away from where all the guests were. Didn't work that well, but at the end of the day, with great music, great entertainment, perfect lighting, and enough food and beverage, any event can be a fun journey.
Yeah, and the people you want there.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Cool. And then if we're looking forward, what impact do you think AI will have on the way we run events at Yellow Door in 2023 and looking forward?
In my opinion, I think AI will definitely be beneficial. It's just the way that you use it. The biggest issue that I find is that a lot of individuals like myself, I often find that I don't stay on trends. You fall behind. You think that what you'd found now is the way forward, and then next week something else comes out. And as long as you adapt with what AI is available, you don't need to spend a lot of money in technology in order for AI to work for you. You can actually use it to your benefit by making your event even more memorable. You can turn an ordinary, let's say, network breakfast into this experiential activation or event where your attendees will walk away with this memorable experience of, wow, why did I not think of that? And through the use of AI, whether it's in copy, in video. I mean, I recently actually saw a case study of somebody that did an event in America where they took photos of everybody walking into the event. They then took that photos, had it printed straight onto cans, handed it over. So if you ordered a beer, you had somebody else on the can and find that individual in the crowd. And you didn't have to stand in a
Amazing.
photo. It's literally just a camera that was set up. It's like a license plate CCTV cameras that you get. It just picked up the faces, immediately went to print, pumped it out, wrapped the can, and that was all robotic. There was not a single human being involved with the process other than setting up the software for that to work. So I
And coming
definitely,
up with the idea.
and coming up with the idea.
Yeah.
It could be that they used AI to find some idea. I definitely think it's, as long as you are not scared of it, and as long as you don't push it to the side, because AI is here and it's here to stay, as long as you can evolve with it, I think you can definitely benefit from it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think just the fact that we are already using it and exploring how we use it best for our clients is exciting. Just as you say, evolving with it, not being scared to try it. So my last question for you is, what are your top three kind of priorities or goals when hosting an event? And I know it'll vary depending on who the event is for, but if you had to pick three things that you focus on, what would they be?
So for me, at the end of the day, a lot of people immediately would say it's to make your client happy. Yes, you want to make sure that they are happy, but what are you doing in order for their brand or for their company or for who they are? Are you making them grow? Or what you're doing really moving the needle in terms of their after event sales? So that sort of steps into the next realm of what I really like to do and want to focus on. And I know that we at Yellow Door also focus on that. And it's like having clear data analytics post event that you can feed back to your client what worked, what didn't work. And it's improving from your last event, because as that saying goes, you're only as good as your last event, you're only as good as your last meal, you're only as good as your last speech. It's exactly the same with eventing. You're only as good as your last event that you put up, whether it's for a specific brand. So in the consumer's eye for that specific brand, it's their last event, and it's also your last event that you have done with a specific client. So it's ensuring you give back, you educate your client, you educate your attendees by providing a feedback service where they feel they can truly give their input of what worked, what didn't work. And then we can go one step further. And what we're doing is we like to use automation and bring that in to save your client time and money, but also to enhance the experience for those attendees, where as soon as you've exited the event, thank you so much for coming. Do you have feedback? Whatever that form of automation may be, it's definitely staying within budget. There's nothing worse than having to go back to your client and say, can I have some more money, please? A lot of times they may say yes, or they may decline, and then you have to make it work. So if you do proper budgeting right from the start, you know that you won't run into any issues. So for me, it's definitely about budgeting. It's about the after event experience, and it's about what you can do for that brand or that business in order to make them grow.
Amazing, sure. Thank you. A lot of really interesting insights, and you touched on the automation, which is going to be on our next interview with Dom. So look out for that one too.
Definitely will. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.